This is the Stand Ups Throwdown MMA podcast. That's right, another podcast that brings together comedians and fighters to talk all things UFC, MMA, and sometimes a little bit more. I'm your host, as always, Bryan Lacey. Thanks for joining me. So here we are once again with the Stand Ups Throwdown MMA podcast, episode 17. Yes, look at that, nearly 20, ladies and gentlemen. That's exciting. With me, Bryan Lacey, your host, and sponsored once again by the lovely people at MMA UK. So follow them on Twitter at @WeAreMMAUK /original MMA UK on Facebook and MMAUK.net on the old internet. And great articles coming from them. Loads of fighter profiles, results from local shows, live tweeting, and also big shows as well, like the UFC and BAMMA. Brilliant people, and thank you once again to them for sponsoring the podcast. And also in podcast news, don't know why I needed the news number, but anyway, there we go. Podcast news, the Facebook page for the Stand Ups Throwdown MMA podcast broke 1,000 likes this week, and that's I'm chuffed to bits with that. It's a big milestone for me, and a lot of the thanks goes towards Peter Knox and Lee Parkin, who've helped me with the social media side. They've been putting up videos, clips, interviews, what do you call them, memes, I don't know, pictures with words on them. They've been putting those up, and that's helped boost the page, and we've broke 1,000 likes, almost at 1,200 I think at the minute, and that's made a big difference to listeners as well. So it's growing, ladies and gentlemen, so big thanks to those people, and a big thanks to you again for listening. That's otherwise it's just me in a room talking to myself, so I do appreciate that, and if you do have the time, I would appreciate it if you would do me the favour of going on iTunes, giving the podcast a like, a rating of 5 stars would be beautiful, a little comment, or even on Stitcher or whatever you listen to it on, because it does help make the podcast more visible, and it keeps it growing, and it boosts my ego. So that's what I like. That's it. Help me grow my ego, ladies and gentlemen, as well as the podcast. So thank you again to you lovely people. So what we got for you this week? We've got 2 guests. We've got no nipple slips, no wardrobe malfunctions, no camel toes, no bollock drops, nothing like that. We've got 2 wonderful guests. The fighter wise, I've got Marc Diakiese from BAMMA. BAMMA's Lonsdale lightweight champion, in preparation for his fight at BAMMA 22. Very excited about that card going over there. They've got about 24 fights. They've stacked it, full of Irish fighters as well, so they're going to get a load of hometown support. Be very excited to see how that event unfolds, and Mark gives us a bit of insight into what it's like being champion, getting called out by lots of different people, his thoughts on the fight as well as his preparation, and on top of that gives us a little bit of insight into his background, where he's come from, and also where he would be if he hadn't found mixed martial arts. Fascinating bloke, very interesting fighter, and at 22 years old, a true prospect for UK MMA, so very excited indeed to bring him to the podcast. And on top of that, I've got Justin Panks, the comedian, fantastic comic, highly touted by Julian Dean, who's one of my favourites, and a big MMA fan. So we broke down UFC Chicago, we talked about the Reebok deal, Stitch Duran, all the fights on the card, UFC Chicago, as well as looking forward to the UFC 190 in Rio, Betch Kahea versus Ronda Rousey. Very interesting indeed to get his perspective, and what a great bloke, really nice fella, and very funny man as well. So let's just crack on with it. So ladies and gentlemen, here you are, here I am, and here is Justin Panks. So here we are, it's Bryan Lacey back with the Stand Ups Throwdown MMA podcast, joined by comedian Justin Panks. How are you doing, fella? You alright?
Yeah, I'm doing well, Bryan. How are you?
I'm very well, sir. Very, very pleased you could join me for this. I just said to you just off before we started the record, it was Julian Dean, one of my good mates, one of my favourite comedians out there, who sent me a message after he'd gig with you, saying you're a funny fucker and you know MMA, get him on the podcast. So here you are, sir. We should thank Julian Dean for this.
Yeah, thanks, Julian. I'm looking forward to this immensely.
Superb, sir. Superb. So look, let's get stuck in straight away. You're first of all, how long have you been a comedian for? What's the how long have you braved the world of comedy?
It's about 6, come up to 7 years next. Yeah, about 6.5 years, something like that.
And what was life before that? Because I did a little bit of research. You were a builder or something like that, weren't you?
Roofing, yeah. I used to do a bit of roofing. Always had them sort of jobs, really. A lot of my family, I used to work to roof for my dad, so that was yeah, about as glamorous as it sounds.
Hey mate, well you've worked your way from up on the roof to inside under a roof with a microphone.
Yeah.
That's what's I mean they do say there's a lot of humour on building sites. Is that where you got your funny bone from, or was it
Yeah, it was not necessarily where I got it from, but it was like another proving ground, if you like, because I was always the class clown, that old cliche, and the building site's another one of those ones where it could be quite a competitive sort of humorous environment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, sort of like Olympic level banter. It was like, you had to have your wits about
you. You were sparring verbally every day,
Yeah,
basically.
it was, you couldn't let anyone get away with anything, and so then you start doing comedy and you start saying some of the things you might have said on a building site and quickly learn, oh no, this is got to rein it back a bit.
Wrong environment for that, maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean it's like gallows humour almost, isn't it?
Of course,
it is. Yeah, it's not like a dangerous environment, but it's just a depressing one because you're going to be like carrying heavy shit until the day you retire. So you just try and have a laugh, and it can be a bit, like I say, you have to rein it back a bit. But.
Oh, well, that's good. It's great you've made the transition into comedy, sir. And the other reason Julian obviously said is that you're a huge martial arts fan. When did that all kick off? When did you start following MMA?
I'm quite ashamed to admit this. I'm going to come clean. Quite late in the game. Always a combat sports fan. I was a huge boxing guy. The first boxing match I ever went to live was I went to the Lennox Lewis versus Razor Ruddock at Earls Court.
Oh, amazing, sir! There you go.
Yeah, that was a baptism of fire because that was amazing. It was inside. It was like real packed in, and he was sort of like that was his acid test. It was meant to be a title eliminator. That was the fight before Bo put the belt in the bin. And so that was my and I was a huge boxing fan. I loved everything about boxing. I mean, when I was a teenager, I had all pictures around my room, like the black and white pictures of Jack Johnson and a boxing historian.
Oh, amazing! Yeah.
Yeah, and again, this is embarrassing, but I did see a single figure UFC event on VHS in the 90s, and I did not like it at all. I was just like, because I saw boxing as this noble. Like the most refined sort of form of competition there was, and this year it just didn't sit right with me. And then later on, I sort of started getting into it, like I'm guessing a lot of people did, when I think it was Bravo used to show shows.
That's right, yes. That's when the Tough series kicked off on Bravo, didn't it? That's
right.
It
was. I used to watch it, and it was like they had on every night, and I was watching it was guys like Chuck, Tito, Evan Tanner, they were the big names at the time, BJ. And the bloke who really got me into it, and I'm guessing, I would imagine this is also true of a lot of people, was Chuck Liddell.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, yes.
Because his fighting style is the embodiment of my attitude to MMA. As in, he used to want to stand and bang, and he would stuff and sprawl every takedown, and I could not stomach the ground game when I started watching it.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think he's responsible for him, Tito, and that era, the way he carried himself, and also the fights he was in. Because his sprawl was so good, it was inevitable it would end with one of his big right hands.
Yeah, and I would applaud a sprawl because I didn't want it to go to the ground. Because I just didn't know what they were doing. I was uneducated and I was ignorant about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, oh, this guy, this is perfect. He's trying to turn it into a boxing match. So it got me in like that, and then I started. But ironically, one of my favourites of that era was probably BJ. He was amazing everywhere. But I gained a lot of appreciation for jiu-jitsu from BJ.
Absolutely, I think a lot of people have been educated through that era as the sports evolved as well with the ground game by Joe Rogan as well. He's so good at describing what's going on that it becomes more interesting. A lot of my mates, and we talked about this before we did the record. When I bring people in, they don't understand that side of the game. It's now one of my favourite bits.
Mine too.
I mean, we'll talk about this in a bit, but people like Ben Saunders and his 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu and how that's evolving and all that sort of stuff. It's a journey everyone has to go on with the UFC. I think it's one of those where, unless you see a ridiculous event like UFC 189 where it brought thousands and millions of people to MMA, with a great event where there was bloody wars like Robbie Lawler and Rory McDonald, as well as the personalities like McGregor. If you just go to a normal card, there's names people don't know from countries people haven't heard of, and it's one of those sports where it takes a while to get your palate used to it. But once you're in, man, you're in. I mean, is this like, has it taken over boxing now for you?
The last boxing match, I didn't even watch Mayweather Pacquiao. I'm totally converted.
You did a Riddick Bowe, basically. You put boxing in the bin, didn't you? That's what's happened.
I put boxing in the bin because if you lose one fight, you're an exposed wash-up. So they pad their record. You have 35 fights before you're even tested in boxing. I'm getting older. I feel like I haven't got the time to invest 5 weeks following someone fighting tomato cans. I mean, I used to go all the time, and the last guy I was really into was Hatton.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I went to the MEN like 5 or 6 times to see him. I also saw him versus Oliveira down in the XL.
Yeah.
And the last time I went to the MEN was I was actually at the UFC when Gonzaga crow-copped and head kicked him. I was there. That was
beautiful. Wow.
Yeah, I went to that. But I just want to go back to your point about Rogan converting people, because I think for someone like me, the complete novice in MMA, an underrated cog in the UFC machine for converting people is Goldberg.
Yes.
Because he says stupid things, but he's sort of saying the questions that the uneducated man might be thinking.
It's a beautiful way of looking at it, isn't it? He does go very layman, doesn't he? And
he is Mr. Layman, isn't he? That's his job. And you can imagine Joe Rogan inside rolling his eyes going. But I think that's Goldberg's role, is to go, well, to sort of like spell it out and ask the dumb questions that I'm asking in my head, and then Rogan can answer them.
Absolutely. No, they're the perfect team. I think there's a lot of people look down on Goldberg as part of that commentary team, but those two are a beautiful bromance that have come through. And also, if you watch what they do now is if you watch the Orlovsky Travis Brown fight, they had a camera on the desk for Joe Rogan and Goldberg.
Him standing up,
and they're both standing up, just twitching and flaying and just shouting, just making noises, just shouting punch, hit, kick, whatever. But I think they're a perfect dynamic.
They're an odd couple. They are. They're an odd couple, but it just works.
It works, but it does work. I think you summed it up brilliantly there as well. As far as the fans going, a lot of people might look down on his commentating or his role, but actually, I think you bang on there. He's pivotal in bringing a lot of fans through.
I absolutely think so. That's why I mentioned it, because he just gets nothing but shit online, and he does come out with some outlets. But like I say, it's like your mum asked the sort of questions your mum would ask if she was watching it, isn't it?
That's right. Well, do you know what? It's hilarious because my mum knows I watch a lot of MMA. So whenever I go up to, she lives miles away, so we go up for a few days up north. I'll have it on the iPad or something, and she's still convinced, because I used to watch WWF when I was, or WWE, what it is now, when I was younger, and she kept telling me when I was a kid, it's not real, and so when she walks past, she still rolls her eyes, going, I cannot believe you're still watching that wrestling stuff.
I had that conversation with my dad, exact same conversation.
It's hilarious, isn't it? But it's very real. Just show them the Anderson Silva leg break, and then they'll figure it out. But so you've been into it. I mean, you came in pretty much at the moment where it sort of the UFC was galvanised, and a load of fans got on, and it started making a shift from underground towards where it's going now, towards the mainstream. You said you haven't trained anything, but you've had a few. You've had one experience with martial arts. Tell us a bit about that. You got to do some ring announcing at a local event.
I did. I was Bruce Buffer for a night. Amazing.
Yeah. Did you suit and boot it?
I did, mate. As much as I could. I mean, I looked like someone on their way to court. An ill-fitting jacket and a pair of jeans and a pair of shoes. But I got it super last minute and had no time to prepare, which isn't a big deal. I thought, that's going to be fine. I mean, it's doing comedy. You're such in the crucible of under the white light, and I thought, well, no one's really there to see me. What can go wrong? But and nothing really did go wrong. But it was Team UK versus Team. Let me get this right. I can't remember. I think it was Norway. And the story goes that in Norway or wherever it was, or Denmark, it's illegal. MMA's illegal, and they can train, but they can't compete. So they get on a bus and they go to other countries to compete.
Right.
So when I got the piece of paper with all the names on, it was all the Nordic names were quite a mouthful. But 90% of the people fighting out of the UK were like Eastern European.
That's hilarious.
And the names, mate, they were all looked like countdown anagrams. It was just like, I was like, oh, Jesus. And it was good fun, though. It was really good. I got the best seat in the house, literally, like, was sitting just behind the fence. It was amazing.
Did you actually do any? Did you add a buffer spin in, or did you add any showbiz to it, or did you keep it straight and narrow and concentrate on the consonants and vowels?
I did. I mean, I went into the changing room and I was going like, who's Slovak, Kirchikaglislan or whatever, and I was like, how do you? And I was writing all their names out phonetically.
Great.
And they were going, oh, don't worry, no one normally bothers. And I was going, no, I want to get it right. I was taking it real serious.
They're trying to warm up and you're going through exactly the phonetics of it. That's hilarious.
Like the deep heat was like burning my nostrils. It was so strong. And I was talking to them. And I wanted to get it right. And I think I got most of them right. And but it turns out that because MMA is illegal and they were just like basically professionals. And I think they won like 9-1 because it was each bout was sort of like a point to each country sort of thing.
Wow.
And it was a big step. There was a big difference in the level. And
you met a celebrity referee, well, a celebrity in our eyes, I think. Little Arnold Allen was there. I say little, that's patronising as fuck. But go on, tell us what that was like, meeting the man himself.
Yeah, I didn't know who he was. I hadn't followed domestic or smaller UK MMA, if you like, as much at that point. And he was just talking to me. Really nice guy. He's like good-looking, young, baby-faced, bloke, sort of like unassuming looking guy. Nice guy. And I was just talking to him, and I noticed he had a cauliflower ear. So I go, oh, do you train, do you? And he was like, oh, well, I'm a professional. Like not being a dick. He was sort of making a joke, fake sort of grandioseness. And I was like, oh yeah, and I went back and Googled him, and I was like, Jesus! Talk about a wolf in sheep's clothing. And he looks like a nice, butter wouldn't melt, but he's a stone cold killer. And I got such a kick out of him getting his debut, because someone had whispered to me that he was going to be on that card before it was announced, and I got such a kick. And I think it's the sort of fight the UFC top brass will like, because he didn't have it all his own way and he pulled a sub out of the bag. So
and coming in very, very late notice, cutting that weight. I know he got a bit of notice as far as he was told to be on standby, but it's still a big jump with 5 days or something like that to go crazy.
Exactly. I mean, sometimes I think it might help. I mean, if you had months to think about it, you could maybe get inside your own head. But you don't know. It's like doing stand-up for the first time. You don't know till you get up there. And I should imagine the UFC feels very different to these smaller organisations, with no disrespect to them. No. But he belongs, doesn't he? I mean, he looked at home. He looked
phenomenal. He was. He's very exciting as a prospect, and you can always tell when there's somebody that you maybe not have heard of on the domestic scene, when you see Twitter go off with a lot of the bigger fighters talking about, watch out for this kid. Brad Pickett was singing his praises, Luke Barnett, a few others as well on the UK scene were saying, just brace yourself for this, because he exactly like you said, he doesn't look like much, but he's at 21 or something. He's tearing it up, and he's very skilled in all departments, and he showed that he can fight as well. He had to get through. I wouldn't say he was losing that fight, but it was a very close call up until that point, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I say he wasn't having it his own way. It wasn't a squash match. He had to fight, and he had to have his wits about him, and he got his chance, and he took it. And
absolutely, man. Absolutely, and that's what we need. We need some of these young UK prospects coming up, and
and he's a very un-British fighter in the respect, like you say, he's well-rounded. Because traditionally, you'd think a British fighter would have a boxing background. I mean, we don't have no wrestling program here to speak. But he's well-rounded.
Absolutely, he said to me, he fights with trains under Jack Mason now, and he started out with boxing. I think 8 or 9 or something. He was doing some amateur boxing, but as soon as he got his teeth into MMA, the rest of the game opened up, and you can see just the quality of his. Also his fight IQ as well. He's a very clever fighter in the cage. He adapts well and turns it round. Truly excited about that fighter as well. I mean, have you got any other favourites that are in the UK scene that you've got your eye on?
Not so much. Just him. Who else is coming up that I'm interested in? Oh, he's not Mike. What's his name? was Page, Venom Page?
Oh yeah, my MVP.
Yeah,
Yes,
him.
Bellator's just.
Yeah, he's a Bellator. He's just throwing crazy spinning shit and taking people's heads off, isn't he?
Yeah, he looks like he's got 8 arms in there, doesn't he? He looks like when he's doing all those crazy.
He's in the Matrix, isn't he? They look like they're in slow motion, and he's can see it all coming.
Absolutely. I mean, I think he's been brought on, like we were talking about boxing taking a while to get people to come along. I think they're bringing him on a little too tentatively in Bellator. He's smashing everybody who's in front of him, but primarily a kickboxer, but just looks, as far as size and technique, just looks like he's on another level from...
totally. He's a one-man highlight reel, isn't he? I mean, everything's spectacular.
Absolutely. Very exciting, and one day I'm sure he'll be heading towards the UFC. Well, we'll see, actually, because the UFC's in a bit of a weird spot at the minute. I don't know if you've been following all the Reebok stuff and all the Stitch stuff and that. I mean, what are your thoughts on where the UFC is now? Because it feels like it's turned a load of corners over the last 5-10 years, but this one, it's a sticky situation they found themselves in with the fighters, with the fans, and it doesn't feel like they're doing themselves any favours with the way they're dealing with things like the Stitch.
I mean, you had the Burt Watson one as well, didn't you?
Absolutely.
These are stalwarts. This is the human side of an organisation that seems to be all of a sudden turning very corporate very quickly.
Yeah.
And some of the characters. I mean, Stitch is when I was watching it, I saw him in every fight. I didn't know who he was, because I was that bloke with the tash, you know. And then you find out who he is, and you see he's the best. And I don't know, you just can't keep shedding. You can't just keep shedding people like that. The Reebok deal. I mean, it's again. I think it's if you was a top level fighter now, I think you're just in it at the wrong time, because I think it will get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think like once you get Reebok on board, then you get other sponsors on board, then you get... I think they won't do this, because they're doing it on tenure at the moment, aren't they? Like, the more fights you've had, the more Reebok. I think in the future, the money will just go up, you get paid, because there'll be a lot of big sponsors.
Yeah, I think it's also like it's almost like when the iPhone comes out, the first one. This is the first big solo sponsor that they've had, and the deal they've set is sort of whatever happens next. The next deal is the one that's going to make the big money, because Reebok have put their toes in the water. It's a huge sponsorship deal. It's definitely taken a lot of money off of the fighters, the higher profile fighters anyway. But in the long run, the next deal that they sign will be worth a lot more, because the sport is growing. It's getting more international. So I think it's almost like the first generation of an iPhone or something like that.
Like you say, with technology, it's not always best to be what they call an early adopter, isn't it?
No, absolutely.
But if you're in the UFC, you're an early adopter whether you like it or not. It's been thrust upon them, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
I think the bumps will get ironed out. I think if we're talking about the thing that's worried me the most, and we could tie this into... this is a big thought I had, especially from watching the Boston card, is this IV ban.
Yes.
Because Barao did not look good.
Oh, you mean the Chicago card? Yeah. The Barao, but
Chicago.
The IV ban is a worry, and they're saying it's for the blood doping to test that and to try and get around that. But for fighters like Barao, I will say this though: I watched the Embedded series on the run up to UFC Chicago, and Barao actually made weight about 3-4 hours before he had to. They stepped him on the scales and he was at 135 3-4 hours before he had to. So I actually thought maybe he's turned a corner. He still didn't look great physically.
He's just so big.
He's huge for that weight class, and the only reason he hasn't stepped up, I think, is because Jose Aldo is where he is. But now Jose Aldo has said, he's come out and said he's going to do an IV no matter what, which is
He's going a bit Vanderlei Silva, isn't he?
Truly is, yeah. But he's also, I don't think he's been treated the best over the last.
No, he hasn't.
Thing, but I don't think shouting "I'm going to do an IV no matter what" is the brainiest thing to do when he's coming up to one of the.
Well, I mean, that's the biggest fight potentially in UFC history, him and Conor, and I would imagine they're both fairly reliant on IVs. They both suck a lot of weight.
Yeah. Conor looked horrific, didn't he? If you saw that encounter with the Uriah Faber when they and also just on the weigh-in days, that it's not a good look. That man,
He's like magic, because the day before he looks all right, on fight night he looks all right. I don't see how a human being can lose that much weight in 24 hours. He looks
horrific.
He looks like he's been found off a raft. drift at sea for 6 months.
That's right. Even the beard, the whole thing fits. Found like just yeah, exactly. Some Tom Hanks film, whatever that was called. But
Castaway.
Castaway.
Yeah, I expect him to turn up with a basketball with a face drawn on it.
That's right. That's hilarious. But the IV ban is going to make a huge difference for a lot of the weight class. I think we're going to see a load of fighters shift around, and it's not. I don't know if I mean. From my point of view, I think fighter safety is the biggest thing. And IVs, one of the things that they do is they replenish you so quickly that it does affect the amount of brain damage you take when you're in a fight. And I just think they may have to rethink it, or they're going to have to look at the weight cutting rules so that they make it safer all round, rather than just because people will still cut a ridiculous amount, they just won't recover as well, and that's going to show in the fights as well. People can't take punches as well, people won't recover from punches as well. So this next few months with the USADA coming in and the IV ban in particular is going to see another shift in sands for the UFC, where it'll probably take us another 6 months to a year to figure out exactly where we are with it and where the fighters sit, because it's all a bit messy at the minute, to be honest.
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, like I say, I used to be a boxing guy, and unfortunately, like when British boxing was going through its golden phase, it was the super middleweights, and there was two incidents. It was the Gerald McClellan against Nigel Benn, and also Watson against Eubank.
Yeah.
And it was those fights that pretty much stopped the same day weigh-in. I think that's why they weigh in 24 hours before the fight now. They used to have to weigh in on the day.
Yeah.
And to say we're going to ban IVs, it's crazy. I know they're saying it's because there can be traces of plastic in the blood, and it could mask.
Yeah, it's plastic in from the bags that they've used to do the blood.
Don't you think, though, Brian? Would it not make sense to have? They have a medical tent, and after the fight they go to the arena and they go in and get. Why don't they have UFC or commission sanctioned IVs?
Yeah.
And they know what's in the bag. I mean, obviously they might go and put something, but regulate the IVs so you can only use. And they could even have them sponsored. Zions could put a compound together or something.
That's another way to get sponsors back in the game.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, it's just
just picture Conor McGregor walking down with one of those IV trolleys, just with Muscle Farm on it or whatever on it. That's hilarious. I think they need to have a real. I think they're going to do whatever. The fact is, the UFC have made huge leaps. That you can't knock what they're trying to do to clean up the sport, but. When so many fighters and athletes outside of the sport and doctors outside of the sport are going, well, fighters are going to cut weight, they're going to cut a lot of weight, and the best way to bring them back to a healthy disposition and rejuvenate them properly is an IV. So it is going to be a very interesting time, and I don't.
Like I say, the biggest potential fight in UFC history is sort of maybe it's going to be affected by the IV ban.
Oh, absolutely.
They're two huge 145.
Absolutely. They both use IVs. They both openly say they use IVs, and they're both huge for that weight class. Conor, I almost thought if Conor had fought Aldo at this last UFC 189 and won, taken the belt, I think I wouldn't have been surprised if he had vacated it and gone straight up to 155. Because
absolutely. I think he's one and done now.
Yeah, I think he's. That weight cut is hard enough for him without being able to replenish yourself properly. But saying that, the big mantra he uses is adapt and overcome. So maybe he will be using.
I'm sure that's the thing. A lot of the guys come from wrestling as well. They'll gut it out, but you can't gut out brain damage.
No, mate. Yeah, you can't. You really
can make
can't.
the weight, and you can go and fight hard, like Kane did in Mexico. I mean, he gutted through the altitude problem, but you could see it was affecting him. You can't mess with science.
No, absolutely. No, it's you can't fight what the body. If you've not got the right stuff in the body, then you're on an uphill battle as it is. But I think he'll either have to cut a lot of weight down before that, which is going to be difficult to do while he's doing the tough series and that sort of thing, or it will be a case of one and done if he beats Aldo, or even if he doesn't, maybe he'll have to go up because the weight cut's so hard. It's going to be an interesting time. So let's get on to UFC Chicago, because it was a brilliant main card, some good prelim fights as well. Really impressed with the Chicago fans as well. It was a huge turnout for the event, and they weren't disappointed by the headline event. And it's good to have you on as sort of an alpha male from a building site sort of background, talking about the alpha male himself, TJ Dillashaw. What did you think? What do you think of the fight overall and Dillashaw's performance?
I'll be honest. The first round, I thought, what's he doing? Because he was in. I mean, the first fight was crazy footwork in and out, and he was will o' the wisp, wasn't he? In the first.
Yeah.
And in the second fight, in that first round, he was in the pocket, and I think Burrell got closer to tagging him in the first 3 minutes than he did the entire last fight.
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
So I'm quite emotional when I watch fights. I have to go back and watch them again because I get an idea in my head of how a round's going.
Yes,
and when I go back, he wasn't as in much trouble as I thought, especially the Conor Mendes one.
But I think it took us all by surprise because the first fight and what's his name, Bang Ludwig's already been on. He was on the MMA Hour saying that wasn't the game plan, to stand there and sort of show him that we can be that aggressive with him. So I think it took us all by surprise because of how beautifully technical that first fight was, how elusive he was, how accurate he was with his striking, and just how he mesmerised Barao, who had been doing the same to other fighters all the way through for the last 10 years without being defeated. So to watch him, I can see exactly what you meant, because I came in thinking, right, it's going to be more footwork, dance around him for a bit and take him to the later rounds, but he got stuck straight in, and fair play to him. He got caught and a few times, maybe more than he wanted to, but he showed Barao he wasn't scared, and you could see in Barao's eyes that it was a different fight to what he was expecting as well.
That's what I'm saying. If you look at the mental game, I mean, if you think Barao, the whole time he was building up to this fight, him and his camp must have been thinking, if we can get him to trade, if we can trade with him, we can beat him.
Yeah, if we can force him into a fight.
3.5 minutes into the first round, you're thinking, oh God, I'm trying, it didn't work. It's sort of like the rug's been pulled from under you. Yeah. I think he broke him. I mean, in the first fight, I don't like talk of lucky punches anyway. I don't think there's no such thing as a lucky punch, but that was a ridiculous one where I heard some people saying, but Barao got caught and tagged in the first round, and he wasn't himself. It's like, that's because Dillashaw punched him in the head. That's sort of like the name of the game, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, no, I agree completely. I think a lot was put on that punch and Barao not being able to recover from it. But if you look at this fight, and if you talk about the weight cut and Barao's physique and size as well, he ran out of gas very early. You could see him struggling back to his corner in round 2 after getting tagged, and he just didn't look as invincible as he had done before. I was when I saw that on Embedded that he'd made weight so early, I thought, my God, we might actually see a killer come out here now. We might see Barao, because the only other fight we've seen Dillashaw in was the one Barao was supposed to be in, then had to pull out from the day before against Joe Soto. That's not the biggest test. God bless Joe Soto for stepping in on his UFC debut in a title fight, but it was kind of this was the bar, and very early on, after I saw some of the exchanges and the look in Barao's eyes, and then him start to fade in the second round with 3 rounds to go, I just thought, we're off again. Dillashaw is gonna at some point. I wasn't sure if he'd finish him again. I was very impressed that he did, but I certainly thought Barao was on the back foot very early, and didn't come as I thought he would, as this invincible person coming to regain his title.
No, like I said, I think his whole mindset would be, right, we need to corner him, we need to get him up against the cage, we need to keep him in the pocket somehow, we need to get in trading and positions. Yeah. And the first round, he was like, well, shit, that's not going to work. And it was just like, then what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Then Dillashaw starts moving a bit more, and then he started to look really slow, and he looked, I'm not saying old, he looked big. He looked too big for the weight.
He looked too slow, didn't he? You're quite right. Yeah. That's the thing. And I think there's another thing to be said, and I talked about this with Robbie Lawler when he came to do his first title defence against McDonald. There was an air of confidence right from the walkout you saw in Dillashaw, right up to the bit where Bruce Buffer's screaming in his face. That was a man who had no doubts he was the champion, no doubts he was the better man, right from the start, and he just grew within that fight as well. I mean, all the way through it, a bit of showboating, full respect every time he started the round, touching gloves, all that sort of stuff, very aware who he was fighting, but not scared, because he knew the sort of skills he had, and that finish, 27 punch combination, finished Barao, and
A bit late, wasn't it?
It was beautiful though. It was you saw him get rocked at the end of the third round, and then in the fourth, Dillashaw came out and his corner was saying he's done, and he did it within 30 seconds of the start of that round. Phenomenal finish, phenomenal performance, and really does. I mean, I was never a huge Dillashaw fan on his run up to the title. He blew me away with his first win against Barao, and he's won me over entirely with this performance.
Absolutely, he's just a man on top of his game, isn't he? I mean, he's in a groove with him and Bang Ludwig. They're just, like you say, the confidence is there. He looks like he thinks he can't do any wrong. I think the only reason it was a rematch was because of Barao's tenure, because the first fight was not close, was it?
No, not at all.
It was similar to me. It reminded me in a lot of ways of when Jones beat Shogun, because Jones hit him early with a flying knee and just dismantled him.
Yeah.
Same thing. I mean, Shogun never. You know, he didn't get a rematch because I think that was his first defence. But I mean, Barao deserved the rematch because of what he did before the Dillashaw fight, rather than what he did in the Dillashaw fight. There's definitely no third match coming.
No, I can't say. I think he will jump up. I think that's got to happen. The fight they're talking with Dillashaw though is the king of footwork, Dominic Cruz, if he can get rehabs the start of the year next year. Looking at that, I mean, how would you see that going? It's hard to say when we've not seen Cruz for a long time and he's so injury ridden. But if they were both healthy, how would you see that fight going?
Tricky fight because Dillashaw is Cruz 2.0 in a way.
Exactly, yeah, he is. Talking of iPhone models,
Giants, isn't he? Because he's taken what Cruz did in terms of the footwork, but Bang's got him sitting down. I think Dillashaw's got a lot more power.
Yeah, absolutely.
He sits down on his shots a lot more. But I'm gonna have to. If I had to bet, I would have to say because of the layoff and how quickly MMA evolves. I mean, because Cruz was always so far ahead of everyone else, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
but Dillashaw seems to have done that, and I don't see how he can't not have leapfrogged Cruz.
Yeah, and I can't see Cruz coming in 100% healthy. That's just an unfortunate thing that somebody in his prime and who could be or should be holding that title, he never lost it, is basically taken away from the sport because of the years of wrestling and all that sort of, and the injuries that have slowly ground into something that has kept him out of the game for so many years now. He's had one fight in 3 years or something ridiculous, or even longer than that maybe.
Yeah, the last fight he had against, who was it?
Mizugaki, yes.
Mizugaki, I mean, fantastic steamrolling performance, but really that's not what you want when you've had a long layoff.
You want a few good rounds in, don't you? Yeah. You want to get in there, you want to get the ring rust off, and same again, I think, same as you, sorry, I think it's just very hard to pick against Dillashaw after those two performances with Bang Ludwig in his corner as well. I think that is a beautiful relationship there, very similar to Mighty Mouse and Matt Hume. That sort of relationship of understanding each other and developing every day that they're working together.
That's what the next thing I was going to say. I mean, the exponential improvement between every fight. He just looks better than the last. I mean, he's going to look better in the next fight. Is Cruz, if he fights, going to look better than he did in his prime? That's very unlikely.
Unlikely. I think you're right on there. So I would love to see the fight. I'd love to see that footwork against footwork and to see exactly what happened. Would it be a changing of the guard and to give Cruz that shot back at getting his title? But I think with the layoff and all the other factors around it, I think it'd be hard not to see Dillashaw going in as a very heavy favourite on that one. That's the next fight is leading to a title fight. Miesha Tate versus Jessica Ai. What did you think of this fight? I thoroughly enjoyed it, to be honest.
Yeah, I like Miesha. She's
pick an adjective, mate. Pick one. Go up.
She's game. She's game, isn't she?
Yeah, exactly.
She gets hit. She guts it out. She doesn't mind getting in the trenches. Don't think she's going to beat Ronda.
No, mate. I think that's and it's almost weird that they're talking about that fight with Ronda before Ronda's fought next weekend. But I think we all know why. I think they say nobody's anywhere near her. But saying that, I do think Miesha Tate proved herself in the last two fights. The Sarah McMahon one where she came back. I think Sarah McMahon's hugely dangerous just because of how dominant she is with wrestling and physically how big she is. But Jessica Ai looked wicked at the start. Really good.
She was lighting her up, wasn't she?
Yeah, really good jab, really good movement. dominant shoulders, head rolling all the time, very difficult target to hit, dominating the stand-up, and looked very patient, looked very assured, and not like the moment had overtaken her. But Misha got through that again, dropped her with a huge right hand, and then literally as if she turned off the movement from Jessica Eye. It was then from that point onwards a pretty dominant display from Misha Tate. But again, same as you, I can't see, even though her striking's improved a bit, I can't see how her game has improved enough to get anywhere near beating Ronda Rousey if they do get to that third fight.
I always think with Ronda Rousey, she was like she's a bit of a freak case in MMA, because I almost think she was good enough to win the belt on her debut, and she's just got better since then.
Absolutely.
But the only thing is with Misha, I mean, let's just say there isn't the biggest upset of all time on Saturday, and obviously it will be Misha versus Ronda. Misha's game plan in their second fight was, I don't know who dreamt that was abysmal.
Oh my god!
Because she was like doing okay, and then initiating clinches.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Everyone was, because she was doing all right. She got through she got further. She's the only one to get past the first round. But then she just body to body with Ronda Rousey. Yeah. You're going for a ride. That
she
is
sort of
what's going to happen.
jumped into about 5 hip tosses in a
absolutely.
row. It's like, what are you doing?
Stop it.
But if she fought this is the thing. I mean, this is the thing with Betch and Ronda. If you stay on the outside and you pick and just you fight, you need to fight Ronda as if she's covered in dog shit. Just do not go near her. Just stand on the outside.
That's hilarious.
Not get hold of her.
That's hilarious. That would be a great bit of corner advice. That would be. I think that would be a beautiful thing to hear from somebody in the corner. Just fight her like she's covered in dog shit. But you're bang on. You need to be away. And Ronda does get hit. If you look at even some of the short fights, her head movement isn't fantastic. She gets hit, but she fights her way in, grabs hold of you, and then before you know it, your arms at your arsehole, and you're tapping like. You're tapping as hard as what's his name did this weekend. Crookshank against Kraus.
Man.
So let's have a look at this. The next fight I want to talk to you about, Barboza versus Felder. That to me was a bit too many spins in there for my liking, but it was good to watch.
Silly, didn't it? It was like watching the waltzers.
Absolutely. It was nice to watch though, but I think the thing that happened with that, very much huge respect for Paul Felder and the body kicks he took, and also that ball shot, that spinning kick to the bollocks, mate. Oh my god. I've got a little girl that's nearly 2, so she's now at the height where when I pick her up, her legs dangle at a certain level, and I forgot about that the other day, and she didn't even kick me. She just had her legs swung gently round and just tapped my bollocks on the side, and I was winded and down to my knees, trying not to drop my little girl. I cannot imagine what a spinning heel kick directly from Barboza. I mean, you saw what happened to Terry Etim with the spinning heel kick. What the... Oh, my God, man. The fact that
he deserves... They should have given him all the bonuses.
All the bonuses, yeah. All the bonuses and all the ice. It was a
direct hit, wasn't it?
It was as clean as you could get, and that cup wouldn't have done much to stop the impact on that. That was a...
They even brought in old matey on the audio. What was his name?
The
commissioner.
Mark Ratner, that's right. Yes, that's hilarious. So what's happened? It was an accidental strike, but it was very hard. But the fact he could fight on after that was pretty impressive. But I think the fact that Barboza was on his toes rather than Felder, who was sort of planted for a lot of it. Very, very game, very hard opponent, great striker. But Barboza's speed and I think his footwork just took it from him, basically.
Yeah, it's one of those ones, but it was just enough. It was every round was wafer thin, but over the course of the whole fight, he just did enough, I think.
And those switch kicks to the side, it wasn't until the end that you could tell that they were hugely damaging. Joe Rogan was talking a lot about how fast they were and how powerful they were, but when Felder held his arms up at the end of the fight, you suddenly saw the welt underneath on his rib cage. He's going to be black and blue this week, and that's not a pretty position to be in. He took so many kicks. Big fan of Felder. I think it will be a learning fight for him. And Barboza, interesting to see what happens next with him, because he's fought Cerrone. and it will be, it's a case of he's now got to go on a good run to get to that title. Be interesting to see him against somebody like Nurmagomedov or somebody like that.
Yeah.
But I think Nurmagomedov would take that. I think he would shut him down fairly quickly.
Yeah, but Nurmagomedov's not going to be standing upright to get kicked. He's going to be laying on top of him.
He's going to, as soon as he can, he's going to be on top of him. Brilliantly impressive fight to watch, though. So I did love that. I mean, this card for me, there wasn't, when you look at it, there wasn't amazing matchups, but when you actually got down to it, the matchmakers really put some really close fights together for people, apart from one, which was Joe Lozon versus Takanori Gomi.
I think Joe Lozon's got a career as a ref.
I think so.
He called it off, didn't he? Fair play to him.
Fair play indeed, and it almost got messy because Herb Dean took a while to call it afterwards. But you saw on the video that as Lozon was hitting him, Gomi went limp at one point, and then fair play to Lozon, he stepped off and left him, just walked away. It would have been a shame if he'd had to jump on and finish him again. But I'm a huge fan of Joe Lozon. He's always in exciting fights. I just think this one, especially when you look at the rest of the card, I think Gomi is well out of his depth now. A huge legend, brilliant fighter, done lots for the sport. But get him just to give him a job in the UFC where he's promoting the fights over there in Asia, that sort of thing.
An ambassador of sports.
Absolutely, the sort of Chuck Liddell of the UFC for somewhere over there. But don't let him get punched anymore. It's so sad to see his face at the end of it when you realise. It's 2.5 minutes, or however long of the fight he managed to get through. All that training, all that sacrifice, and all done.
Yeah, it's just athletics, isn't it? It's Father Time. He's got a lot of miles on the clock. He's got nothing left to prove. All the old cliches apply here, but it's not nice to see the fireball kid. He's gone out. He's gone out, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. He's just a kid now. That's it. That's right.
He's just a cinder.
That's it. That's just an ember burning lightly. A few other good fights. I thought the finish, Tom Lawler against Vellante. I think he was definitely losing that fight before that. He got him with that right hand. But an impressive finish from Tom Lawler to say that was his first fight up into the 205 division. I don't think. Did you watch the Robertson-Saunders fight?
Saw the end
because that was an interesting one. I actually would have given it on points to Kenny Robertson's, but Ben Saunders again. He's training under Anthony Hardonk, so his kickboxing's up there. But I think Kenny Robertson was more effective on the striking. Yet when Ben Saunders managed to get him to the ground, he tied him up so quickly with these the rubber guard mission control, as Joe Rogan describes it. But so I just don't know why he's not going to the ground quicker with some of his fights. It was a close one. It was a really enjoyable one to watch. Bit of back and forth, damage caused on both sides. So yeah, I wouldn't argue with Ben Saunders getting it, but in my eyes, I thought Kenny Robertson just did enough. The other fight that caught a lot of people's eyes for not the right reasons was the Jessamine Duke fight against Elizabeth Phillips. Did you see the wardrobe Reebok malfunction during that fight?
No, I didn't see the prelims. What did I miss? I've got it on Sky Plus. I'm going to have to go back.
You're going to have to go back and watch this. It was all over. Basically, this is the first... I'm not sure if this was the first female fight with the Reebok kit on. I think it might have been. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was. And it was a decent enough fight. Elizabeth Phillips, it was a rematch. They'd fought each other at college or something like that, or in an amateur fight before. And Elizabeth Phillips versus Jessamine Duke. And she dominated the first 2 rounds, and then Duke came out in the 3rd round, really put it on her, and almost caught her in an armbar at the very end of the 3rd round. But as she pulled the armbar, the Reebok kick came up and out popped one of Elizabeth Phillips. Let's just say what shouldn't have popped out.
Pecs.
Yeah, pecs. Thank you, mate. Thanks for saving me on that one. So again, another, and I know Ronda Rousey, one of her biggest fears is wardrobe malfunction. That almost happened in a Liz Carmouche fight.
Yeah, it did. She got up and adjusted it straight away.
Exactly, and so she was involved in the Reebok design for these kits. And first time it's gone out with the ladies, and it's the first ever Reebok kit malfunction I love it.
They're getting a bit of positive reaction on Twitter then.
Exactly. Well, they got a few more people tuning in for the Misha Tate fight just in case, but the yet again Reebok trying to shine and whatever else, and just didn't look good again, because that's not what you want for the fighters. I know there's a few people that might want that to happen all the time, but they're going out there and want to be concentrating.
They've got enough to think about.
Exactly, without having to try and adjust.
And we skated over the fight, but just to go back, someone who's completely affected by Reebok is Lawler, of course, who always used to come out and do some crazy gimmicky type thing at the weigh-in. He wasn't allowed to this time. No,
he basically put on every bit of Reebok kit. That's what he did. If you watch the weigh-ins, he's got about 7 layers or 8 layers. Basically put every single bit of Reebok kit in. But yeah, like you said, he used to come out with all sorts of stuff. And they also he was slightly pissed off at him because he's Filthy Tom Lawler, and they called his kit Thomas Lawler, which doesn't quite go with Filthy Thomas Lawler. Doesn't sound as good with as a Filthy Tom Lawler does. So he was slightly upset by that. But again, a fight that it's just another bit of bad PR for Reebok. It just feels like a poison chalice at the minute. There's no escaping whatever they do, even if they've got a great card like this going on. One of the big things they're talking about is Reebok's kit failing the female fighters. So not great in my eyes.
I can't see him being happy with how any of it's gone. Like we were saying with Stitch and the negative reaction to that. People are blaming Reebok.
Yeah.
You know, it might not be. I mean, they put out a tweet, I think, saying, "Oh, we have no input into who the UFC hires and fires." But people, it's just like I say, you're losing characters like Stitch. You're losing the individual of the fighters. So that's the thing about combat sports, isn't it?
Yes, the beautiful thing. You think about like Henry Cejudo coming down in his sort of golden shorts with almost a Tarzan thing on, and Brad Pickett with his vest and his trilby. Yeah. Robert Whiteford was upset he wasn't allowed to wear his kilt into UFC Glasgow. It's
didn't Conor refuse to wear it?
There was Chael Sonnen's podcast said that Conor McGregor, he didn't come out with a Reebok top on, and also if you watch at the end of the fight, Dana White hands him the black one with the gold McGregor on it to say you're the champion, and he just took it and passed it to somebody else without saying it, without putting it on. So I don't know what had happened there. He's actually a signed Reebok fighter as well, so he's one of these that has got a brilliant deal with Reebok, like Paige Van Zant's and who else is in there? Ronda Rousey, obviously. So basically, he's got a separate deal with them where they pay him exclusive sponsorship deals. So he gets that on top. So no idea what happened there. But
if Tom Lawler had done that, it'd have been cut.
Yeah.
You know, but Conor McGregor's the golden elephant, isn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. The worst thing for Lawler, he wouldn't have been cut. He would have just not got any fights, so he'd have just been stagnant, not earning money. Yeah. So they've got so much power with this, but like you said, it just I don't think there's been any positive PR from this. No, the kits look terrible. The corner guys look ridiculous in the same outfits. It's taken all the individuality out of it.
They're too similar as well, aren't they? One's like predominantly black with a white stripe, and one's white with a black stripe.
Exactly.
Why not just go with red and blue?
Red and blue, like they've always had, like they have on the tape on their arms. I mean, there's so many things that they could do. It feels like they signed the deal and then they just threw it together in the week before they had to launch it. So
the design's kind of modern but drab, isn't it? It's I don't know, the whole thing. They changed the graphics on 189. I liked all that. That was a nice cleaner line, wasn't it?
It was. I didn't like the music as much, but the graphics certainly worked. I thought it felt like we were watching a different event, to be honest. And but it did feel like the graphics and all along with it had stepped up. Apart from the music, which felt like some really bad computer game music going alongside it. But
Face the Pain. Why are they so married to Face the Pain?
I love Face the Pain.
We're going to change it, but we're going to change it. We're going to make it worse, but it was still got. I don't mind Face the Pain.
It is hilarious. A lot of people.
When I hear that, I just get amped up. It's like Pavlovian response.
Absolutely.
UFC's about to start, but
yeah. As soon as I hear that,
it isn't change it totally. Don't bastardise it, sort of thing.
Yeah. Don't dilute it. Make it harder, if anything. But it's interesting times, and I think. Well, let's talk about the next card as well before, because we've nearly talked for 50 minutes, man. This is amazing. So what we should talk about next is the Rio card. I'll talk to you about a couple of fights on there. Rousey Kahea. For me, it's a mismatch. The only thing that Cajella's got is she does have power. If you look at her Jessamine Duke and Shayna Baszler fights, she can cause damage. She's a hard hitter for a 135er. But Rousey, I don't know if you saw some of the pictures on Twitter about a week ago. Just they showed her in training, just putting wraps on, and she looked absolutely jacked. She looked huge.
Well, she's got a bit of venom in her anyway, but she's really got a bit for this girl, and she hates her.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Kaya made a comment about her Rousey. She want Rousey to want to commit suicide after the beating she gives her, and Rousey's history involves suicide with her dad, so it's not the wisest step to have made. Also, she doesn't mind being the heel. Rousey, she's walked into many an arena. The Misha Tate fight after the Tough series, there was more boos for her than there were cheers. But she performed brilliantly in that, and I think stepping into Rio, I think the atmosphere is going to be great for this one. I think the atmosphere is going to outdo the event, if I'm honest.
I'd say in terms of the fight, the spectacle of it is going to be. I'm tuning in for the spectacle rather than the competition.
Absolutely.
For the main event. I mean, to hear Joan Jett fire up in Rio and Rousey in her backyard walking out with that mean mug. I mean, I'm looking forward to that as much.
I love her mean mug. She's
rolling over.
Yeah, absolutely. She's one of those ladies. If she was your girlfriend, you would know she was pissed off at her. You wouldn't have to do that whole sentence. Is it something I've done? Or what's wrong, babe? You'd just know she was ready to throw you on the.
Bringing flowers, I wouldn't even ask, mate.
I mean, I can't see this going past the first. I mean, that's an easy trait of Rousey's fights, the first round finishes. But I think she's outclassed. I did watch the Embedded series. If you go on the UFC website, and Betch Cajeilla showed us more of her than I was expecting to show us. It showed it's the little documentary which follows the fight week, the run into fight week, and Cajeilla was at her flat and she was doing some training on the beach, and she basically just had a Brazilian beach thong on. So she's got her ass hanging out. She's got a sort of see-through black tutu while she's training on the beach. So we saw that she's packing quite a lot. The 135 pounds in those glutes and hamstrings down there. So I saw more of Betch than I was wanting to see. But I just think Rousey's a different level, and I think. They're looking past this fight to the Misha Tate one already.
Yeah, that's the only danger. I mean, Sarah GSP. I mean, it can happen.
Yeah.
But I don't see it happening here. I think Rousey, she's an Olympic medalist, judoka. She's used to pressure. She's used to performing when it counts. It comes around every 4 years. The Olympic. I mean, she knows how to perform. That's the thing with her, isn't it?
Absolutely. She turns up and she turns it on, and I think that whole mantra she's got of I want to be able to beat you on my worst day when you're on your best day. I think that's she could have lost a leg, and I think she should still win this fight.
I mean, I don't know what the betting odds are, but I would say this must be one of the most lopsided fights I can remember.
Yeah, absolutely, huge favourite for Rousey. They've splattered the card with a few Brazilian legends as well. Shogun Rua versus Nogueira, the younger of the Nogueiras, obviously Rogério Nogueira. For me, not a fight that excites me at all. They're big names. I can't see it being that exciting. I think Nogueira is. He's apart from who was it that he knocked out? Was it? I've forgotten which one he knocked out now. It was the wrestler. But anyway, apart from that fight, he's not looked great in his UFC run at all. He's riding on the back of his name, and I don't think Rashad Evans. That was it. That's who he beat. Sorry, I just had to look that up. But I don't think he's well past his prime. From what I heard as well, I listened to Brendan Schaub talk about. Warming up for his fight, or warming up Patrick Cummings, I think, for a fight in the same locker room as Nogueira, and he's that badly damaged that he can barely warm up, so he goes out almost cold. And Shogun Rua devastatingly knocked out in his last fight back against OSP, and I don't think either of these. They should just.
Shogun, I love Shogun, but he's had some bad losses, and I mean bad as in prolonged beatings.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean the Jones one I mentioned earlier. I mean
Henderson, the
Henderson,
yeah,
the
absolutely.
First one. I mean, the thing with Shogun though, he comes back. I didn't think he could have come back from the Jones one. That was awful. He actually tapped. If you watch that.
He tapped to strikes after that elbow. Yeah,
and he's on his knees tapping to strikes. Then he came back one. Then the first Henderson fight, I thought that's definitely finished him off. He came back, and in the second Henderson fight, he was actually doing all right, and he was winning, but he got caught, didn't he?
He got caught by that big hand, right? Yeah.
Too brave for his own good. I mean, his knees are shot.
His chin's going. He never looks physically great either. There's always been a talk about the way he trains, and if he trained harder, then we could have seen an even better Shogun in his prime. But it's just not a great fight for me. One for the Brazilian fans.
I wouldn't be surprised if Nog came out on a mobility scooter. He is so over the hill.
You're talking big Nog or little Nog? Because I think they should get a tandem scooter, to be honest. Because
sidecar.
Absolutely. Well, the big Nog's on this as well. He's fighting Stefan Struve, which is...
he's got medical issues, let's face it. He kind of has, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, he has. He's got he's got heart issues, but he seems to have overcome them to get back in. And Struve is only, I don't know how old is he actually. He's only in his 20s, I think. And Nogueira, what is he, 78 or something, at least in fight years. And that's the thing with Nogueira. He looks about 70 years old, but I think the scary thing is he's about my age, 36.
Age in dog years then, boys.
Absolutely. But the Struve coming off the loss to Alistair Overeem. Good to see him back, and I think...
Yeah, I wasn't being disrespectful about the medical thing, but I'm saying it's kind of like a shot fighter almost against a... I, again, can't believe he came back from the Mir fight, because that was difficult to watch.
Absolutely, that was horrific. He should have tapped, that's one of the things. Brazilian pride got in the way, and...
I think BJJ guys, I'm not tapping to this
not
American upstart sort of thing.
No, and he's not looked the same for a long time, but it seems to be... that I don't know if this is going to be the last dance for the Nogueiras. I wouldn't like to see them go on any further. I don't think there's much for them after this. Win or lose, if they win, it'd be a great high to go out on, and if they lose, then I think that's enough for me. I don't need to see them get beat up anymore.
I think the trouble is in the UFC with some of these big names. I think there's a tendency with Bellator doing the Shamrock and Kimbo thing. I mean, they will take anyone with a name and put them in a fight, and I think the UFC are starting to think we've got to hang on to these guys just so Bellator can't have them. Yeah,
especially the big names. You're quite right, because you look at who Bellator have got behind them, like the Royce Gracie is now one of their ambassadors. You've got Koscheck's moved over there. You've got Fedor Emelianenko.
Phil Davis is gone. I mean, he's in his prime, really.
Yeah.
But this Fruit Nogueira is a Bellator matchup.
Yes.
This is a Tito. These are blasts from the past.
Absolutely.
If you like.
These are names that some people will recognise and that you could get a bit of PR off, but won't be the greatest fights. Another fight that I think will be a good fight and might steal it is the 115 strawweight match between Claudia Gadelha and Aguilera. Jessica Aguilera. She's come from World Series of Fighting, the champion there. Gadelha was in a very close fight. The only loss she's got is against Jędrzejczyk, and some argue that she actually won that. This, for me, is a brilliant matchup. I think some people won't know Jessica from the World Series of Fighting, but she's been a dominant champion over there, and a lot of people think that she's very high level. She's ranked 15, I think, at the minute with the UFC.
If she comes through this, she deserves a shot because it's in Brazil. I think Gadelha is the number one contender.
Yeah, well, I also don't think there's anyone else really on the horizon that we could sell a fight off the back of. If the World Series of Fighting champ wins, it's champion against champion, and if Gadelha wins, it's the rematch that people have said should have happened earlier anyway. So
I think it's kind of a win-win for the UFC in that regards, isn't it? I mean, I think sometimes you definitely get the sense they want one or the other fighter to win for their future plans. I think here you can sell a fight with either of these.
I think they've lined it up. We'll find out exactly what Jessica Aguilera is about, or we'll find out if we can get that rematch. Because I'd really like to see that. I thought the first fight was very close, and certainly the most trouble we've seen Jędrzejczyk in any of her fights. So that would be a fight I'd be happy to see. Apart from that, it's a typical Brazil card. Few names. The only other fight that I'd want to highlight before we disappear and let you go, mate. because I appreciate your time. I've eaten a lot of it. Is the Damian Maia versus Neil Magny fight. It's the headline fight on the prelims. About time Neil Magny got a big name to go for.
Yeah.
7-fight win streak, and Damian Maia coming off the win against Lafleur is a tough ask for anybody, especially in Brazil.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it? And again, it's another one of those things. I mean, Damian Maia, I've got a lot of respect for his skill set. He's not a fighter that I ever get really jacked about watching.
Yeah.
I mean,
when they put the Lafleur Maia as the headline fight of that Brazil card, I was like, oh really? Is that it's not. Both of those weren't names that you would sort of or really wonder how they'll do against each other or what will be next for either of them. But you do respect him as far as he's almost like a Machidi. He's a puzzle that you've got to solve because he's so
absolutely, yeah.
So good.
I've got a lot of respect for jiu-jitsu and his level of I mean, he's up there at the highest level of jiu-jitsu, but it's, he's like Damian Maia. I mean, I've never quite got over the Silva fight. I mean, that was well, I don't know what that was. I don't know what to say about that. But he just looked like he wasn't. It was Silva was clowning, and it was like do something, but he just looked like.
No, he broke. I think that was the Mystique of Silva. I think that was Dubai, wasn't it? It was a. I think he just broke him mentally. I think he suddenly realised what was in front of him, and that's why Silva was so comfortable. But you're quite right. It'll always be something hanging over him, and he's never sort of taken that step. He's looked impressive in some parts, like even at the Rory McDonald fight, he looked good at the start, and then McDonald overcame him. So it'll be interesting to see, because I've loved Magny's evolution, and even in his last fight, he had to come over a bit of adversity. I think he was in Japan to get that win, but we'll find out exactly if he's.
I mean, 170 is a division shaping up. I mean, Magny a win here would definitely add to the mix of the 170 division, I think.
Hasn't it got nicer? Hasn't it got more fun since GSP's gone? It's a really sad thing to say, but hasn't that division just blossomed into one of the most exciting to watch? And
I think George is as rightly so has been quite vocally concerned about head trauma. I think watching Rory against
the Red King,
I don't think that's going to make him want to rush back anytime soon to face.
There you go. That's your agent.
Demanding, mate.
There you go. That's your agent.
GSP, Word gets around fast.
Very good, man. Hey, look. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm going to let you go, sir, because it's been an hour now already. I do appreciate it, mate. If people want to find out where you're at, you're doing Edinburgh this year, by the way.
I'm doing Edinburgh. I'm going to be up there from the 7th to the 26th at the Caves at 10 p.m.
Beautiful. Just the Tonic Caves. Nice time slot as well. What's the show called, mate?
It's called Joy is the Enemy of Progress.
Nice and positive message. I love it. That's good. And if people want to find you on Twitter or Facebook and all that sort of stuff, where can they get you?
Yeah, it's just at Justin Panks on Twitter or Justin Panks on. It's one of them names. It's a Google whack. There's only one person unlucky enough to be called Justin Panks, so it's easy to find. I just use that as my handle for everything. I never want to be like Justin Panks 1278 or anything.
Yeah. You Justin Panks one and only. There you go. Hey man, look, pleasure talking to you. We'll definitely do this again, and hopefully we'll cross paths at some point. And we'll do some gigs together, and we'll do it face to face. That'll be a pleasure, mate. All right.
Yeah, that'd be great, mate.
Loved it. All right, take care, mate. Speak soon. Cheers.
Thanks, Brian. Bye.
Bye. So there we have Justin Panks. Really enjoyed talking to him. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Loads of great insight there, and I reckon we could have spoken for about 4 hours non-stop. So I look forward to the day we do cross paths. Hopefully we'll get a weekend somewhere, and then we can while it away by talking UFC, MMA, and maybe watching an event as well. That would be absolutely beautiful. So look, give Justin a little follow on Twitter, at Justin Panks, Panks. Panks? Yeah, I thought I said that wrong. Justin Panks. So let him know you've listened to the podcast, and give him a little tweet to let him know what you thought as well. Fantastic stuff from him. So let's move on. I'm very excited now to bring you BAMMA's Lonsdale lightweight champion. That's right, this is Marc Bonecrusher Diakiese. So here we are, it's Bryan Lacey with Marc Diakiese, ladies and gentlemen. Lonsdale lightweight BAMMA champion. How are you, Marc? How's things?
I'm fine, thank you. You?
I'm very well, sir. All the better for speaking to you. Tell me about your day, sir, because you just got back from training. Is that right?
Yeah, I've been in Manchester for some drilling and stuff, and I've just got back, resting for about an hour, and then again.
A whole hour, sir. Really? Are you all right with that? Super. And let's just set this up properly, because you're in preparation for BAMMA 22, a monumental event for BAMMA, going out to Ireland for the first time, an absolutely stacked card, and you're defending your title for the first time against Rick Selvaraja. I had to say his name twice there. How's prep going? How you looking forward to stepping on Irish soil for the first time to fight there?
I'm really looking forward to it. The training's going well. There's not really. I've not really done much on my fitness as a start. I've just basically just doing technical building up and different stuff. Then obviously I'm stepping game up by looking at next week. Start put a bit more work in.
Fantastic, mate. And how's it felt confidence-wise, knowing that you are the champ now? This is your first title defence. What's that done to you mentally to get you ready for a fight like this?
Mentally, I'd say not much. I'd just say it's just more challenging. It's more interesting, as in people calling me out, which seems to be more interesting.
I was going to say, because if you go on Twitter or Facebook or any of the forums where there's any interviews with you, it wouldn't look like you're fighting Rick. It's there's people mentioning you left, right and centre who are signed to fight different people. There's Jack McGann, who you fought to win the title, mentioning you in his prep for Jack Grant. And then there's also Kay Musa, who is constantly seems to be dropping your name everywhere.
No, Jack McGann just better because he lost, which is he will lose again. But Jack will definitely beat him. And Kay Musa just lost some little midget that's just likes to talk. But his time will come.
Well, it almost came before. I mean, did the whole beef start? Because that's the one that's really caught the fans' eyes. Did it all start because of the fight that never happened? He came out of a fight because of a knee injury. Is that where the beef started between you?
Yeah, I believe so. Even though he wasn't fighting, but he turned up with the weigh-ins, tried mouthing and stuff. But I didn't really want to fight him because it didn't do anything good to promotion. He's not even at his debut yet, so I don't know. He just happened to fight up when he's not ready. But now I'm waiting for him to have a fight in Ireland. I'm looking forward to watching him fight, and after that, he should get his beating as well. So just waiting.
Well, we look forward to whatever happens next. It's been interesting just to watch that on social media, but I think this is sort of a sign of what comes with being a fighter of your caliber, and also with a belt round your waist. The belt is almost like a target on your back, because people are scrapping to get to you, and to say that you've only been a pro fighter for just over 2 years now, to have this amount of heat behind you, and also that level of fighter looking to get under your skin, that's got to give you a little bit of confidence as well, as to where you are in your career and where you could potentially go.
No, I've always been confident. Just kind of building me up. I kind of like it because I don't stand on one side. I keep working harder. The more they talk, the more. To be honest, I think they should shut up when they want to fight me. They should keep quiet and fight me instead of talking in the media, because it makes me train harder. But it's a good thing. So
that's a great thing. So they're pushing you through. So this is it's going to be an interesting night for Rick as well. I mean, let's talk about your opponent that's coming up in BAMMA 22, because he's an awkward opponent as well. He's only had one fight in BAMMA. It was a very close decision. I'm not entirely sure what your thoughts were on that decision of that fight. But as far as styles go, he's obviously got submissions, but he's also got some Muay Thai, Taekwondo. Like yourself, he's quite an unorthodox striker as well. How do you see the fight in your eyes, comparing his skills to yours?
Well, personally, watching the fight with Jefferson, I thought he lost that fight, and it didn't really impress me that much. And I find this some sort of rude for them to even having a title fight with me. But obviously, it's Thomas' choice. I'm looking forward to taking him out as well. So we'll see. But his style is not all that. I'm not really impressed at all. I don't think it's awkward. He drops his hand down and just moves back. He waits, which is the worst thing to do with me. When you wait, you give me distance, you give me enough time to think what I want to do. It's the worst thing you can ever do. So I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, the other thing I want to say about your fighting style, there's some fighters that struggle to get out the gates, to get their head in the game, and to start at the pace they need for a fight of BAMMA's sort of level. You don't have that problem. You are renowned for your fast starts and kicking it off straight away. I mean, what sort of is that always been the way you are, or do you have to build yourself up while you're warming up to get to that level so that you come out and fight as hard as you do in those first 5 minutes?
Well, I don't know. It just depends. But that's how I've always been. As I train with high level guys, as in Scott Askim, a lot of them, Mike Wilkinson. I'm training with a lot of high level guys, so I'm kind of used to getting that pace going. So I don't have a problem with my cardio or anything. But these guys, I think, they're just not ready for that type of stuff.
It's interesting you say about Scott Askham and Mike Wilkinson as well, because you're doing your full camp at ASW for this one, I understand, and that's under Darren Morris, if I'm right. And his name's popped up quite a lot in the interviews I've done with other fighters and also fight fans as a gym that's one to watch. I mean, obviously Scott Askham had a great fight last time with the UFC, and Mike Wilkinson unfortunately got injured before he could fight again out in Germany. But they're super high level guys, and ASW sounds to be like a blossoming home for MMA fighters. I mean, how have you found that switch to that camp for your full camp? How's that been working under Darren Morris full time?
Yeah, 100%. It's a good gym to train at. I mean, Darren is like definitely put his time with me, 100% working with me. And as in like my ground game, my stand up walk, I'm a different fighter. I feel like I still got a lot to show, which Darren's kind of like taught me how to go out there and improve it to people. So I feel like this next fight I've got to finish. I feel like I've got to finish it. As in, I mean, I've got the tools that I need to finish it. So yeah, it's a good camp.
Is that the target you're setting yourself then? Because I know your last three, you've had 3 hard fights with BAMMA, but they've all gone to decision. Is this really you're looking to sort of make a statement with this as a champ in Ireland out there for the first time by finishing Rick? Is that the plan?
It sort of is, but like training ASW, it kind of made me realize with my style, as in I've got everything that I need. Really, I've got explosiveness, but I didn't really have much technique of finishing fights. I was happy to just carry on what I was doing, but I've got a different mentality now, which is winning comes second. As in, I've got to put a show, which is I'm getting taught how to finish fights, basically. So it's working out right for me.
It's great, man. It's great. It's also I was doing a bit of reading up on you, and it's quite nice. It's not uncommon for people to compare you to the styles of fighters like John Jones, because you are unorthodox. You've got length. You've got reach on most of your opponents. You're maturing into the game. You're still only 22. What sort of fighters do you look up to? What do you base your style on when you're training?
Well, I looked up to John Jones, but yeah. I like his style. Well, he's a great fighter. But for now, I'm starting to just discover my own style, which is working out right for me. I mean, I've got tall guys at the gym. I try a few things on them, which works out. So that's it. Yeah, I just do my own thing now.
It's nice, man. It's beautiful to watch you evolve as well. And when did it all start? So when did you actually get into MMA? Were you into one martial art to start with, and then did it grow into MMA?
No, I didn't do anything. I just turned to a gym 5 years ago and started. I had my first profile within, I think, six months or 3 months, whatever it was. I can't remember. Yeah, but that's when it started.
So 5 years ago you walked into a gym, and now you're BAMMA Lonsdale lightweight champion. There's fighters out there and people who train for years who will be biting their tongue at you, sir. That's some beautiful that you've taken to the game beautifully. Is it always something you're into, combat sports, or did you sort of stumble in it through any other means?
No, I think I've always been a sort of how do I say it? Well, a fighter. I fought in the streets when I was young, and I thought I might as well give it a go in MMA, and it seemed to have worked out for me. So
that's all right.
I just give him my all every day, so how I progress with it.
You say you're a fighter. I mean, it says you're from Doncaster. Is that where you grew up?
Yeah, that's where I've grown up. I've come from Congo in Africa, but this is where I've grown up in Doncaster.
Yeah. Because I grew up in Huddersfield, mate. I've lost my accent now, so I had many a trip over to the Doncaster Dome. Do you do any training over there?
No, I've had a few of my amateur fights at the Dome actually. So it's a great venue as well, to be honest.
Yeah. I just remember I don't know about fighting there. I think I'd be scared enough. I just remember having to climb back down the ladder because I was too scared to jump off the top diving board there. So that about shows you the guts you're dealing with on this side of the microphone, fella. Obviously, coming from that neck of the woods, you mentioned before your mates with Jack Grant. Do you train together? Do you get to spar often? Because he's obviously over at Cleethorpes. Do you actually come together and do any sparring?
No, I travel up there Wednesday and Saturdays. Yeah, I feel like me and Jack have come kind of close. Well, I think so. Yeah, so we wait together. We just discuss with like different things, like just to make ourselves better in different areas. Yeah, he's a very good sparring partner. I feel he's the right opponent, like perfect sparring partner for me. Yeah, so we're stuck together.
He's also very jealous of your abs, mate. I don't know if he's mentioned that a few times to you. Last time I spoke to him, I said, "What skills would you like?" And he's just seemed obsessed with your 6-pack or 8-pack, shall I say? How many sit-ups a day do you do to look like that, mate?
I think it's in my genes. I think it's natural.
Oh, mate, I hate you even more now, fella. This is not good. So you naturally got an 8-pack. It takes you 5 years to become a Lonsdale champion. Is there anything? But what can't you do, sir? I've seen you dance as well in the cage. You can obviously dance. Is there anything you're rubbish at? Come on, make yourself seem human. What can't you do?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm a champ. I give everything.
Oh, mate, I hate you. I hate you to bits. That's Can you cook?
Yeah, I can cook.
What's your signature dish then, sir? Come on. What if I was to pop up there and we were to do an MMA come down with me? What would you slap in front of me for my dinner?
I don't know. I'll probably say chicken.
Love a bit of chicken. Is that it? Just chicken? You're just going to protein me up?
Probably flavoured chicken and rice or something.
Oh, beautiful, sir, beautiful. And let's talk a little bit about your home life and your family life just before we crack on. Because I saw on your Instagram you've got a little boy. Is that right?
Yeah, I've got a little boy. Yeah.
And I saw he was already in the ring. How old is he?
He's 2 years old. He's 3 in January.
3 in January. If it takes him 5 years, he could be Lonsdale champion by 8 years old. Then that's what we're sort of figuring out. So that's amazing. So I've got a little 2-year-old as well, 2-year-old girl. Is that a huge inspiration for you? I mean, that sounds like a silly question, but is it something that plays on your mind while you're in training? Is it something that gets you out of bed to do the miles on the road?
Yeah, no, it has to be. Got to be. It's my inspiration. As in, I've grown up different. I've grown up with no parents. I've grown up myself. I left home at 16 years old. You see, so yeah. I could have gone a different way, and I've somehow found MMA. So it kind of helped me. So I'm looking to work hard and give me a better life through it. So I put my time in. So hopefully it works out for me.
That's amazing. That's great. So you say MMA has sort of saved you, and that's not an uncommon story. I know Jack Grant talked as well about his issues before he got into boxing and into martial arts. Where do you think you would have been if MMA hadn't have come around and you were left to the mean streets of Doncaster?
I don't know. I don't know. I'd say probably in prison or something, because back in my day, I'm talking 17, 18, I was one of them person that was always in trouble, getting in trouble. His group of friends all the time, hanging about, fighting, constant. So yeah, I've been in trouble with the police a few times, but it's not where I wanted to be. I tried stopping a few times, saying I don't want to be in court no more. I don't want to go in police all the time no more. I kept finding myself there. But MMA's helping me quite a lot. I stayed out of it.
That's great. And I also saw I think it was either Instagram or Twitter video of, have you got younger brothers? Were you showing your younger brothers one of your fights once?
My younger brother? Which one?
Sorry, it was a little while ago. I just saw it pop up, and you said I shouldn't have shown you were showing your brothers one of your fights, and they were reacting to it.
Yeah. No, they were watching my fight for some reason. I don't really show them because I don't live with them. But they were watching my fight, and for somehow I bought them a trampoline to play on, and for some reason they turned it to a cage, so they start fighting each other.
That's what brothers are for, though, mate, isn't it? That's it. That's a good thing. Well, it's a great thing that MMA's done this for your life, and it's turned it round. It's not just giving you a second lease of life, but like you said, it's improving the opportunities for your young boy as well. And on top of that, you're being an inspiration to your family as well. That's a beautiful thing. Is that a big responsibility of yours? You said you grew up without parents and you left at 16. Have you taken it upon yourself to now you've turned your life around to be that role model for these people in your lives?
Yeah, I feel that way. I feel like, as in, it's always difficult living this sort of life at 16, leaving home and that. Well, I'm saying I'm African, so you may probably get kicked out at 16. You never know. Our parents are quite very strict, so I'm just trying to inspire them to do better.
That's great, man. That's awesome. And will they be making the trip over to Ireland with you? Who have you got going to cheer you on?
No, believe it or not, my dad lives in London, so I don't really see it much. Most of my fights is always me, my fans, really, my friends, my close friends, but my family don't really. But I don't know if they like it. They don't really like me getting hit. For some reason, I don't like to see him get hit. So.
I think that's quite understandable. I think they watching it, because if they're unaware of the safety around it, they just see I suppose they just see the violence in it. But it's a beautiful sport, and obviously it's highly regulated now. And you've got a huge fan base. I've noticed that from watching you on Twitter and seeing what goes around. Will you be hoping a few of them will be making the trip all the way over to Ireland to support you?
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I've only just got tickets. I'm hoping so. It'd be great to have a few fans there cheering up for me. So it's great. But I'm sure I can pick up some fans in Ireland too. So
I think that's it. And if you're looking to make a statement, the Irish fans have shown themselves over the last 2 years to be some of the best on the planet. So it's got to be exciting to go over there. And even if you pick up 2 or 3 Irish fans, they're going to be louder than a lot of others from around the world, aren't they? So where can people get tickets from if they wanted to get them from you? Let's sort that out.
From me, from BAMMA page, you can contact me on Facebook. I've got them. So yeah, or just go on BAMMA Facebook page and speak to BAMMA.
Fantastic, mate. And also with this one, have you got? Let's give out a shout out to your sponsors if you like. Who have you got on board for this trip to Dublin, Ireland with BAMMA?
Excess Mouthguard, Heavy Duty. I've got sponsors which I can't announce yet. I'm waiting, so I won't announce them.
Great.
And, well.
It's always a tough question because if you remember one, you forget another. So I do apologise. So I'm not trying to.
Heavy Duty fight gear. One of my friends, Scott Askim's dad, plays a garage which helps me for all my car problems. Yeah, thank you.
Come on, let's find out what car's a BAMMA Lonsdale lightweight champion. What are you driving, sir? What's the beast?
Nothing special, just Insignia.
An Insignia? That's not bad, sir. That's all right. Beats my Hyundai. So thanks very much for that as well. You can cook, you can dance, you drive a nicer car than me, and you're a BAMMA champion. You're making me feel like I've not done anything with my life, mate. There we are.
No, it's good for traveling. It's the right choice for me as I travel. I travel quite a lot. I do 12 hours a day traveling just to get to Manchester and back.
You still live in Doncaster, so you still do that journey backwards and forwards?
Yeah, like now I've got to go Sheffield next, so.
Wow, crikey, mate. Racking up the Yorkshire miles there, sir. Racking them up indeed. Look, mate, we're genuinely looking forward to this fight. It's been exciting watching you grow, with BAMMA especially, just seeing the evolution of what you've got. And from the sounds of your development with ASW over this fight camp, it looks like we're going to see a Bonecrusher Mark .2. Any final words before you disappear off and get ready for September 19th, fella?
I just want to say, as you know, people don't realise that I've not been pro for long, for over 2 years. I know I get criticised all the time, it doesn't really bother me, but, they need to realise that I've only been pro for 2 years. I'm still growing. I'm 7-0, amateur was 9-0. I'm still learning, because these guys don't realise. So I would say just keep watching me and just support me. No need to, keep supporting.
Oh, absolutely, man. I think you're a huge prospect for MMA, and it's great to see you find your feet. And you're 22 years old, man, and that's I'm 36. I'm not trying to be patronising. You've got a long way to go. You've yet to hit your physical prime as well. And when that happens, that's going to be a nasty time for anyone in front of you. So just keep doing what you're doing. Be you, man, and we'll keep cheering. All right, fella.
Thank you.
Hey, I appreciate that. Take care. All the best for September 19th, Mark.
Thank you.
Bye. So that was the Bonecrusher himself, that's right, Marc Diakiese, BAMMA's Lonsdale lightweight champion. Chuffed to bits he came on the podcast. Thank you for sparing the time in between your training to come on and talk to me. Really enjoyed that. He defends his title for the first time on September 19th, BAMMA 22 at the 3 Arena in Dublin against Rick Selvaraja. And see how I had to concentrate on that. It's a great name, Rick Selvaraja, another undefeated opponent. Both got a record of 7-0. A great matchup for the Lonsdale title, and it sounds like Mark is really putting his all into this prep. And if you want to show Mark some support, you can follow him on Twitter at Marc Diakiese. That's right. So it's Mark with a C, MARC _ Diakiese, DIAKIESE, and you can hit him up as well for tickets for the event on September 19th at the 3 Arena in Dublin for BAMMA 22. Tickets also on sale via the BAMMA website, so if you want to go there, I'll put links up to that. It's going to be a great card. Very excited to see exactly how their first trip to Ireland goes, but they've stacked it, so I imagine it's going to be a night full of knockout submissions and some crazy Irish fans, which is what we love. So good luck to him on that. Also, big thank you to Justin Panks for the time he spent talking through UFC Chicago and UFC 190. Really enjoyed that. Follow him on Twitter at Justin Panks. Say hello to him there, and also MMA UK, thanks again for sponsoring the podcast. Once again, next week we will be back to give you a full reaction to UFC 190. I've got a couple of fighters lined up as well. Fingers crossed we can get them tied in, a UFC one and another BAMMA one in prep for this September 19th card. Thank you again to you lovely people. If you want to get in touch with me, find me on Twitter at ThrowdownMMAPod. Always love to hear from you. Let me know what you think of the podcast. Also on let's get that Facebook up even more, / Stand Ups Throwdown MMA podcast on Facebook, and then if you want to send an email with more than 140 characters to let me know how much you love or hate the show, throwdownmmapod@gmail.com. That is it from me. Thank you for your time. We'll be back next week. Until then, you have a good one.